Welcome back to Bacon Buddies. My name is Chad. I'm a third-generation pig farmer here in Mount Olive, North Carolina.
My name is Marlo Ivy, and I'm a second-generation pig farmer from Wayne County, North Carolina, and we have a very special guest on the show today. This is Kim Kornegay, and she is our first guest ever for Bacon Buddies, so you're like the first guest that we've had on the show.
It can only go up from here.
No, we started with the best.
Kim Kornegay is a farmer in Johnson County, and she is a farm her. So we're very proud to have a female farmer on the show today. 27% of the farmers in North Carolina are female, in case you didn't know. Mm-hmm. But Kim, thanks for coming to see us today.
Well, it's an honor to be invited here. I really appreciate it. I have a lot of regards for you guys and what you do for the industry, and it's just very nice to be in your company this morning.
Well, thank you. Tell us a little bit about our farm and what your responsibility is and who's all involved with your operation?
Well, I'm the fourth generation on our farm. My brother and another man are our farm managers, so they do all the production stuff. And then I oversee food safety, human relations, customer service, public relations. I mean, like kind of some logistics, a little bit of sales, payroll, invoicing. You know, I farm from a desk is what I say. And so, there's my brother's on the production side, I'm more on the packing side, and then my dad oversees it all. My mom's pretty much semi-retired, but she's still there and lets her opinions be known and makes decisions for the farm. Wow. And then I have 3 boys and 2 nephews, so they're the 6th generation that is actually active on the farm, working and contributing to the farm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wow, that's great.
So back in the day, like, I guess you're the 4th generation. So
yeah, so my boys are the 5th. Sorry, I said 6, but my boys are the 5th.
Yeah. But you guys, what did you start? How did you guys get started in farming?
Well, my grandpa farmed with his family, and the mule ran him off. He did not like going behind that mule around on Brogden Road in Princeton. So he went to Goldsboro and worked for a bus company, and also started working as a manager on a tobacco grading floor for J.P. Taylor in Goldsboro. And just working around that tobacco, making him think about, you know, how he grew up and knowing that there was tractors now instead of mules. He started farming a little bit at night, and someone told me when he passed away that probably Mr. Frank farmed more acres at night than most people did during the day, because he had a day job and he would go to the country at night and farm and plow up tobacco, do whatever he had to do. We used all local help, which we had a very small acreage back then, so you could get by with local help. Yeah. But he just slowly grew it, and when my dad and mom got out of high school, and they just really turned into a full-time and started renting some more land and hiring some more people, and just slow and steady growth, treating people right, having good relationships with your landowners, because we have to rent a lot of land.
So it was tobacco first, though.
It's tobacco first. I mean, like so many farms in eastern North Carolina, tobacco was the thing that kept us going, and that was the first love, you might say, the cash crop, the biggest revenue source. But he started growing sweet potatoes the year my dad was born in 1953, and it's just been it's just been a slow and steady process since then. Yeah. We grew for other sheds and sold our potatoes, but in 2007 we built our own packing line. Just to have a little bit more control of where your stuff goes, and started having relationships with people that buy potatoes here in the U.S., and then also expanding to export and have several international customers that we ship directly to. So we've been very blessed. There's been a lot of hard work involved, but we've been very blessed by the Lord in what we've tried to do for our operation.
Well, amen to that.
So today, is it mostly sweet potatoes, or is it?
Well, acreage-wise, we probably have more acres than soybeans, to be honest with you.
Okay, so there is some other row crops.
Yes, we still have traditional row crops like cotton, soybeans, wheat. Our produce crops are sweet potatoes, watermelons, and butternut squash. So we pack the sweet potatoes year-round. We pack the watermelons and the squash seasonally. And then for the sweet potatoes and tobacco, probably about on the same plane as far as revenue. Both of them are very costly as far as inputs and labor go as well. Cotton is not as much revenue, even though we have a lot of acres of it. But the demand is not there this year. You know, it fluctuates, as everyone knows. Everything does. So we're probably going to plant a little less cotton this year, but we're probably going to be around 1,300 on our sweet potatoes, between 1,300 and 1,400 acres, and about 1,000 acres of tobacco.
She does it all, man.
Yeah,
we're very diversified.
The total package.
Yeah. I call her the potato preacher because we always talk about sweet potatoes with Kim, but she's really like just the farmer preacher. I mean, she does it all.
Well, I mean, it's not. I'm not a one man show by any means, and we all have our things that we're very strong in, and we all support each other. And you know, my brother doesn't tell me how to do my job in the office, and I don't tell him what to do in the field, because you know, he's got a proven track record, he and my dad and our farm manager, what's going on the production side, and just it's a lot of teamwork and collaboration and
that's what agriculture is all about. I mean, it's a lot of people working together. I mean, I'll think about Michelle Granger.
Absolutely.
I mean, she's big in sweet potatoes as far as she's
the executive director of the North Carolina Sweet Potato Commission.
Okay, so I mean, it takes a lot of people to make agriculture happen.
She's fantastic at those relationships too, and bringing people together and looking at new ways to kind of market and promote sweet potatoes. I mean, we just have a fantastic staff in the commission office, and so excited about, you know, just the direction sweet potatoes are going, and just trying to get more consumption, you know, nationwide and across the pond.
Well, you got me. I'm a sweet potato.
Well, we thank you for your contribution. They're so good.
Yeah. How about you, Marla?
I love a sweet. I ate a sweet potato this weekend. Just
really?
Baked in the oven, and then with a little bit of butter and cinnamon.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat.
Yeah, you don't even need a whole lot, because they're so naturally sweet.
They are
and
so
they're
good
for you. I mean, they're just so good for you. They're a superfood. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I like sweet potato fries too.
Oh yeah.
Very good.
I love to roast them. I mean, leave the skin on and cut them in cubes and roast them with a little bit of oil and salt and pepper, and throw maybe some onions in there, or some broccoli. I mean, you know, your root vegetables and stuff like that.
We may have to talk after the podcast. I get a few recipes.
I mean, it's so
she's
good.
got some.
I've got some. I've got a
She
website
does.
for myself, and then the Sweet Potato Commission's website is just a plethora of recipes and all kinds, you know, from sweet to savory, desserts to main dishes or side dishes, smoothies. I mean, you can do so much with a potato. There's very little waste in sweet potatoes.
So give me the lowdown on like how a sweet potato is grown. I mean, I know there's like a slip, but just give me the timing and just the really dumbed down version of what happens.
It's funny you ask that, because right now there's some sweet potato growers in North Carolina that are getting their tater beds ready, and we're going to start that next week. But really, you start with a very small potato. It's called a seed potato. So you don't go and buy, you know, packs of seed from the store. A sweet potato starts really in the lab at North Carolina State. They do a lot of I'm going to get too technical and start talking about stuff that I'm not too smart in, but just the science behind it, and have these plant slips, and then they'll sell those plant slips to certified seed dealers in North Carolina, and from those plant slips they'll grow seed potatoes. And so we buy certified seed, which is G1, Generation 1. That potato came from a slip that was grown in the lab. So it's got, you know, it's virus indexed to be virus free. It's very clean seed. So we'll buy certified G1 seeds from a certified seed dealer. And then we'll also use the seed that we gathered from the prior year's crop. That would be Generation 2, because it came from certified seed the year before. Okay. So with that certified seed of G1 and our own certified seed of G2s, and this, when I say a seed potato, is very small. It's smaller than what you could fit in your hand. It's about, you know, between a golf ball and a tennis ball, and as far as size, and very small. And you just lay those. We distribute those via like a hopper implement that's hooked up to the back of the tractor. It's distributed in a bed, covered up by dirt, covered up by plastic, and then we just leave those there to let the soil, the moisture, cover them up to keep them from frost damage. It's like a little mini greenhouse effect kind of in all those potato beds. And when the weather gets warm enough, we're sure we're at a frost damage, and you'll start to see the little sprouts are shooting up, the leaves are shooting up from underneath. But when we know, and we'll perforate it as we go along, punch some holes in it to give it some more oxygen. But when we know that the frost damage is over, we'll take all that plastic off, start irrigating every day. That sunshine that comes along in late April and May is just what they want, and they'll just grow. Wow. And then we cut those slips, and we'll put them on the setter, the transplanter, put them in the ground, And then your process starts with potatoes growing underneath because they are a root. So they're going to sprout underneath the ground from that slip and grow. And then about 120 days later, usually not that long, especially if you've had a great growing season, it starts, as my dad says, it's time to start digging for buried treasure. And you see what you got underneath. And that starts around September 1st, the first couple of weeks of September. An ideal harvest season would be September 1st through October 31st. That's 8 weeks before your frost comes in, before your cold comes in. That's ideal in a perfect situation.
Right.
It's not been like that, especially when we have hurricanes like Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Florence. But we had the last 2 seasons as far as harvest, we couldn't ask for better. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cool. It wasn't too wet. I mean, the growing season was different, but the harvest season, it was really good. Good conditions.
So the slip goes in the ground around July?
The slip goes in the ground probably about the end of May, depending on the last 2 years. We've been setting out around May 20th, something like that. Some farmers may start around May 15th, but it's usually not before the 15th of May. The slip goes in the ground. And 90 to 120 days later, it's time to start digging.
And I guess you have to time that so that you have...
We do, so we don't, with as many acres as we have,
we
don't all want to ready at one time. So we just kind of space that out. And that setter's just going about 2.5, 3 miles an hour. So it's a slow process, especially as many acres as we've got. But yeah, I mean, they go in the ground and it's all about timing, like you said. And sometimes we might start digging a field that was planted later just because it might have got more rain than somewhere else. I mean, we've got land in Johnston County and Wayne County, and we have some potatoes in Grantham last 2 years, and they have a whole different ecological system than we do. We might get rain in Princeton on Worley Road, and 15 minutes down the road in Grantham, nothing. I mean, but yeah, we just. Farming is it's like opening a box of chocolates, like Forrest Gump said. You never know what you're going to get sometimes, and every day's different. But that's part of the fun, a little bit.
The rain is funny how it gets certain areas more than others, and it's like it always happens.
Yeah, I mean, we might have after a big rain in July that has a lot of wind, we might have some tobacco blowed over in Princeton, and it was fine in Grant. Or vice versa. Yeah. It's just it's wild what the trees and the different terrain and just everything does. I mean, it's just crazy, but that's farming.
That's right. That's right. Talking about those different the G1s and the G2s, that's what we call parity on the South.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
I was thinking of parity. That's parity.
I know. Yeah, very good. Very good. Parities are how many? Maybe we should explain what a parity is real quick.
Well, go ahead.
Well, a parity is how many I guess litters your sow has. So if you sow have had 1 litter, it's 1 parity. If your sow's had 2 litters, it's 2 parities.
Yeah. So. Well, I learned something this morning.
Yeah, that's what we. I remember when I was pregnant, my dad would be like, how's gestation going? How's gestation going? This is Marlo's parity 2.
Parity 2. That's good. So your second parity.
Yeah, it was my second parity with my son. How's gestation going?
That's funny. So when these sweet potatoes, I mean, they're growing, and it comes harvest time. I mean, we got to turn them over and get them out of the ground, right?
That's correct. So, I mean, they produce a lot of vines. Those roots underneath produce a lot of vines on top. So what we'll do first is we'll go through and shred or mow those vines away, and that just helps the digger get to them better, clears up things for the guys in the field. And so we mow the vines, and then we'll come through either with a flip plow or a chain digger, depending on, what your soil is. For example, we like to do most everything with a chain digger because it actually brings the potatoes, it scoops up underneath the potatoes, brings them up with a chain and lays them pretty nicely on top. But a couple years ago, we had a farm that was the first time we'd had sweet potatoes on it, and it had been an old building, and so there was a lot of, big timbers, nails, rocks, stuff like that, and it would have destroyed a chain digger. So we use a flip plow, and it brings the potatoes up, but there's still a lot of dirt on top of them. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the workers prefer the chain digger, and we prefer that too, but it just kind of depends on what's in that soil and what's underneath besides sweet potatoes that we've got to look out for.
Yeah.
When you talk about your workers, what does that mean? Like I know you talk about the acres you have of sweet potatoes, and I know that you work with different opportunities the government provides for you. Can you explain a little bit to
Sure.
us what that is and how it works?
So I mentioned earlier, how our farm was pretty small whenever my dad and grandpa and my
Mhm.
mom got started, and we just used local help. But as we've gotten bigger, and just things change, especially work ethic amongst the local help and things that people are willing to do, we found ourselves relying on seasonal foreign guest workers for the last probably 20 years. So we're part of the H-2A program, which is a federal program that allows farmers to contract with workers that are in other countries, which there's opportunities for pretty much any country. I've South Africa, Haiti, Colombia, Ecuador. I mean, but our guys come from Mexico. Our guys are actually family members of people that have worked for us for years. And so we are, through the H-2A program, we're certified to have 78 foreign guest workers from Mexico. And that certification comes down from the Department of Labor. And you can only be certified if you've met certain criteria. One of them being, is your housing adequate? And our housing is fantastic by lots of standards. We have housing for 78 people, heating, central heat and air, washing machines, dryers, county water, beds, fans. I mean, I feel like we take very good care of our guys, because you got to take care of your people so they'll take care of you and can rest at the end of the day. So these guys come in, and there's lots of paperwork involved. They are vetted through Homeland Security before they come across. They have to meet with the consulate before they cross. And, they have to go get their visa that's got, Kornegay Family Farms has contracted with this man for the 2023 season for these dates before they're even allowed to come over. So we'll start having workers come in February to help us in our greenhouses. And then, like yesterday, another 7 guys arrived because we're getting ready to start laying plastic for our watermelons. We're still prepping land to set out our tobacco, but by April 15th, we'll have about half of the guys here, because that's when we're going to start setting out our tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tobacco for people that
I totally understand
don't
what
know
you
what
said.
people listen that don't know what I'm saying.
I'm surprised you put
It's
the two on it. It's just
tobacco.
backer.
I have a funny video of
Yes.
my youngest son when he was probably 4, and on his own, completely on his own, he said, "City folks say tobacco, country folks say tobacco." And
It
that's,
is a good video.
among my Facebook followers, it's pretty viral.
Yeah.
But anyway, those guys come in, staggered entry. Everyone is here by the end of May when we're getting ready to start setting out those sweet potatoes, and we're trying to run 2 setters at a time and cover a lot of ground. And then they will stay through the end of sweet potato season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually, for the last 2 years, that's been between October 31st and November 10th, just depending on the weather. And they'll stay through that, and they'll go back home, and literally within 2 weeks of them going back home, I'm already getting the paperwork ready for the next season.
So how long are they home for?
Well, depending on when they enter,
Right.
I've got 2 guys that I consider kind of my chiefs, my supervisors.
Yeah.
And they came back, they left in November, and they came back February 3rd. Now, I will alternate next year. They will be where they can stay home an extra month, and someone else will come ahead of them.
Okay.
Right.
So I try to rotate it, so it's not always on these 2 or 3 people to bear the burden of being the ones that are away from their family the most.
Yeah.
So the guys who come in May, they'll have a longer time at home.
Yeah.
Is it the same guys every year?
It's the same guys every year. I've besides maybe a handful or so that have either chose to not to come back because of family obligations, or I chose to not have them come back because of maybe work ethic or kind of making trouble in the camps.
Yeah.
Which, that happens because nobody's perfect, but you try to set standards
Right.
and expectations, and if those aren't met, you don't get a chance to come back.
Right.
But it's the same guys every year. Out of those 78 guys, there's probably just 10 families represented, because there's lots of brothers, nephews, uncles, sons, fathers.
And those are big families down there.
Yeah, I think I have 4 sets of fathers and sons. And
Wow.
they work together. One day in this 2021, it was in the day, and we're getting ready to move fields, and there was it made no sense to try to start over, because it was so in the day. And we had like a family portrait session right into the field. I said, I want, if you and your brother, whoever is family, fathers and sons. And I did a series on our Instagram about, here's all these families, that we have here. And I mean, it's a good time. They work really
Wow.
hard, though. They work really hard. We're super thankful. We couldn't do it without them.
That's interesting you say that. I mean, so they're coming over here. They're leaving some of their family, but they're bringing some of their family with them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, which I'm thankful for because it makes things, especially if it's someone's first time here.
Yeah,
If they've got their brother and their dad
Right.
along, and that's a lot of times what happens. Someone will say, "Well, my son's old enough now to come over and work.
Yep.
Do you have an opportunity for him?" So we do. But yeah, I mean, and these guys, I kind of try to mother them some and help them out. And
I see that on your social media.
And I mean, when they go back home, I follow them on Facebook, and just to see their kids and what they get to do with their kids, because the opportunities we can provide them over here, and Christmas morning over there reminds me of when I was a kid, and just everything under the tree. And I mean, it's pretty awesome and fulfilling to get to be able to do that for someone else,
Right.
And they've worked super hard and have earned every penny, but be able to provide that opportunity for them, it gives you a lot of satisfaction and joy.
Yeah. And that Christmas wouldn't be possible if they
Right.
didn't come over here and work and earn.
Absolutely.
I mean, over there, they wouldn't be able to earn.
Yeah, because you have a set pay. Yeah, I mean,
go
not
ahead.
to go into what you have to pay. I mean, but isn't that set?
Oh,
by
absolutely.
labor? I mean,
Yeah, so the
commission,
H-2A program.
I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah, the H-2A program, is federally mandated, and so there is a certain wage criteria that we have to meet, and it's different per region. I mean, like over there in Oregon and Washington State, I think it's between 16 and 17. California's probably between 17 and 18. North Carolina's labor or AWR rate which that stands for adverse effect wage rate, is currently $14.91 per hour for H-2A workers.
Yeah.
And us in Virginia are in the same region, and then states like Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, I think they're around $13.50, $13.60 right now. We would actually prefer to be more aligned in that because we feel like our crops are more like theirs as far as the hand labor and so much intensity. But right now we're at $14.91, and that is determined. Someone with a lot more expertise and knowledge could tell you the whole backstory, but that's kind of based on a survey that they expect people to turn in and just inform you about what kind of jobs are taking place on my farm, how many people, how many acres. I mean, that's, I would change it around a little bit if it was me. I gave a tour to some FFA students from Chase High School in Forest City yesterday. They were here at Mount Olive for a FFA competition, and on their way back, they stopped by to tour the packing line. And I told them, I said, when we first got into the H-2A program, I was like, oh man, it's going to be so much paperwork. But the paperwork's not a problem. Getting the houses certified, it's not a problem. Paying all the power bills to keep that air conditioner going and that water going, that's not really my problem. I just wish there was a better way to determine what the hourly rate is, because every year our expenses go up. We're not really getting more for our product though, and it's putting a lot of farmers out of business or reducing what they do, because when does it end? What is going to be the final straw as far as our labor bill? Because our labor bill for the last several years has been over $1 million. That's just been what we have paid out in labor. And in 2021, the labor rate was $13.05. I believe, and it was $13 and some change. It went up $1 and a penny in 2022. So before my guys even got on my farm, they'd worked collectively over 120,000 hours in 2021. So before they even got on my farm in 22, my payroll jumped up $120,000. Wow! Just from H-2A guys.
And thinking about this, $14 an hour, it may not sound like a lot to many, but they're not having to pay for housing.
No, they have no cost here. There's no
they...
withholding taxes taken out of their pay every week. I mean, they take home their gross wages. Yeah, we provide. So we provide their transportation over here and their transportation back to Mexico, which includes how much food it takes. Some of them take a plane, so they're here within hours. Some of them take a bus, so it takes a couple of days. But we pay for their cost for them to get to the border, their meals per day, their bus ticket or flight. I mean, it's by the end of the season, it's around $1,000, $1,200 per worker round trip to get them here and then back to Mexico. Then, you know, our cost is all the filing fee we have to pay our attorney who makes sure everything is legal. There's fees associated with paying Homeland Security for the part that they do. Our power bills for keeping the lights on in the housing. And I was going to try to figure it out and get a list together, just what my expenses are per year, but I didn't get around to that. But it's safe to say it's over thousands of dollars to keep the lights on, to keep the air conditioner running, to keep the water pumping the well, or, you know, the county water. I mean, it's big expenses. But yeah, those guys, they're only responsible as far as cost wise, their food that they consume, and then anything they buy to send back home, or their clothing, or whatever their personal necessities are. That's the only thing they have to pay.
So
for
I would say they're
here.
well over $20 an hour if you think about.
Oh, my dad has figured that out. Yeah, my dad has been telling people for years, you know, that it's at least, at one time it was around 16, but yeah, the way it is now, it's about $20 an hour to pay everyone what they're doing, plus to keep them comfortable when they're in the camps.
What about medical? Like if somebody gets hurt in the field, or you know.
Well, Mama Kim, if someone gets hurt in the field, which we haven't had too much of that in the last few years, praise the Lord, but accidents happen. Accidents happen to you at work, at home, you know, stuff like that happens. And we have a big safety meeting every year, and I have lots of postings in the camps just reminding people, be safe, don't take this chance, da-da-da-da-da. But if someone gets hurt or has a medical problem, sometimes they'll take themselves, because all these guys have driver's license, and there's clinics where there's bilingual speakers. If they're able to. And then I've sat in the emergency room at night with some guys because of an accident that happened. And we also, there's local clinics in Wilson County and in Duplin County and Sampson County that they'll actually come out to your camp. They'll call you and see, is this okay if I come out? We just do some blood pressure checks and some wellness screenings. And so they might not get there till about 6:30 that night when the guys come in, but they've been very faithful about, you know, seeing what the guys needed, and they'll even sometimes come and pick them up. Because I have a few guys that have diabetes or vision problems, and they'll come and take those guys and get them taken care of. So, I mean, there's so many resources out there, thankfully, that we can call on if bad things do happen. Yeah.
What are some of the things people say is wrong with the H-2A program, or maybe some detractors from the H-2A program? What are some of the things you see there?
I have heard extreme people saying that they think it's modern-day slavery. And not necessarily the H-2A program, but using guest workers from another country, using a migrant labor source. And to that, that's just so much ignorance involved in that. I mean, I could show them all the messages I have from my guys wanting to bring more family members over. Do you have an opportunity? I mean, if you loved your family member, would you willfully bring them into an environment that's hostile and like slavery? So I think that's just speaking from ignorance. And every year, especially towards the end of the season, I try to spotlight my workers throughout the year. And we always have a going away lunch, appreciation lunch at the end of the season before they go to Mexico and take a picture. And I just try to really sing their praises about how we couldn't do it without them, and the opportunities that they're afforded because they come here. And there's just, I want people to know how much I appreciate my workers as a farmer and as an employer. And so, I mean, that's an extreme when people say that. I think people think that also migrant labor forces are taking jobs away from Americans, which nothing could be further from the truth. They're doing the jobs that Americans refuse to do, and that's why they're here. And there's lots of things that I can look back over the years and see socially and government regulations that have forced us really as farmers to have to rely on these guys. I mean, but they're doing the jobs that Americans won't do. We are required to post ads for these jobs in local newspapers. And they have to call.
I didn't know that.
So my phone number's there, my email, and they'll, I have had over the last 6 years, less than a handful of American workers calling me, inquiring about the job, and see what they see is how much it is per hour. And then when I start describing to them what the work is and asking them, have they ever done this before? And can they carry this bucket that weighs close to 40 pounds, so many feet in this truck repeatedly during the day? No, I can't do that. I don't know about that. Working outside all day? I mean, no one has ever showed up or even, said, yeah, I'll try it. So yeah, they're not taking jobs away from
Yeah.
Americans. They're doing the jobs that Americans, unfortunately, think that they are too good to do.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, as our family grew tobacco, as you
Yeah.
say, right? We would go around and pick up our hail.
Yeah,
like
my
you
dad did
described.
that in high school. My
Yeah, we
dad
would
would
fill the
say,
back of the truck up.
my dad would say the days I did go to school, after school, I would pick my
Yeah.
friends up and, load in the back of the car and go
Yeah.
out and work. My dad can remember put potatoes in back then with the round bushel baskets that had the wooden tops.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I remember stacking those, and he'd name off some friends from
Yeah.
school. And he said, we were happy as we could be. We didn't know no better. We loved it. But I mean, just...
When did that transition take place, though? I mean, I was out, so tobacco, we stopped tobacco, and we didn't continue any produce or anything. So when did that transition?
I think it was a gradual thing. I think that Department of Labor made it harder for teenagers to work on farms. Lots of regulations. I mean, our farm has put people through college, our neighbor kids. And
I was working on the farm when I was a teenager. You too, right?
When
Yes.
I was a kid,
I was delivering semen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I drove the semen truck to sell farms.
Oh, I love it, Marla.
You gotta get back and
Sorry.
When I was a kid, though, I mean, and we were born in the back, my brother and I helped out on the farm, and I mean, it was all local help. It was probably about half and half.
It was
And
fun.
it was our neighbors, and
Yeah.
it was fun. And I think the shift kind of started when our government, started figuring out that, parents just weren't smart enough to make the decisions for their kids.
Mhm.
And so they started putting age requirements and having to get a work permit. And I don't want to get myself in trouble here. I believe that, the core of that was good as far as, you want kids to be safe.
Mhm.
You don't want farm accidents to happen, because farm can be a dangerous place if you're not being
It
careful
can.
and you're not
Absolutely.
using common sense. But it also, kind of made parents not send their kids out to that. And then so you've got kids that are, not realizing what it was like to grow up on a farm and working and having those stories and
Yeah.
getting covered in tobacco gum or getting sick from, this or that. And I mean, it's hard work, but yeah, it was good work. And I think just that kind of government intervention and regulation made it harder. And I think farmers somewhere along the lines, instead of being, I don't want to say heroes, but instead of being the good guys, we've kind of gotten villainized somewhere along the way.
Oh,
Also,
absolutely.
tobacco has been, just pointed fingers out like it's just a terrible thing. And, I feel like we should still be able to make choices if we want to put that in our bodies, or not just like alcohol or vitamins or whatnot. I mean, that's a choice, and all things in moderation is kind of my motto. So I think, just that perfect storm of government regulation, public perception of what farmers do, more and more land being bought up and turned into subdivisions, and farmers and people getting out of farming, so you don't have a neighbor anymore right down the road that's a farmer. Your closest farming neighbor is maybe 20 miles away, and you go to the grocery store and your kids think food comes from a store instead of out of the ground and so many hands. It's just a lot of things, I think, that had got us to this point where we can't rely on our local labor anymore. And I mean, it's not just farming now. There's grocery stores. You see all kinds of teenagers in the grocery stores or fast food restaurants or whatever helping out, and you just don't see that anymore. And there's a less of a work ethic. Every generation has less of a work ethic than the one before.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I don't see it changing any.
In the future.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of scary.
I mean, we become a society. We want it easy. We want it now. We want it cheap. And there's a lot of spoiling of children that go along. Happens also. I know this is a farming podcast, but I think some of that contributes to it as well.
Yeah,
kids
I
are
totally
spoiled
agree.
and not made to have jobs anymore and to go out and make their own way.
And I think exactly what you said is why we decided to start this podcast.
Yeah.
The people that are removed from the farm, the misconception about farming, and honestly fighting for the farmer.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're constantly fighting this misconception that we're working 40, 80 hours a week to try and kill somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's the whole reason for this
That's
podcast, honestly.
And I'm so thankful for y'all and thankful for
thank
feeding the
you.
dialogue and North Carolina Pork Council and North Carolina Farm Families. There's so many organizations and Pork Farm Bureau that have just really in the last few years seen the direction that things were going, and realizing that we need a champion. We need a lot of champions.
Yeah, it's another thing you talk about a team effort.
Yeah.
You know, advocating for agriculture is not a one-person job. It's everybody.
It really is, and we're behind the curve.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But we're trying the best we can now, and we see the error in our ways and trying to make up for it.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Well, I appreciate y'all really.
No, thanks for coming on the podcast.
I learned a lot today.
Me too.
So I guess I mean, for me, like, what's one thing that you about H-2A or even sweet potatoes, if you could change and make it better for both the farmers and the workers? I mean, is there a magic bullet or anything that?
Well, you know, the magic thing that I think would help a lot of farmers out, not big farmers and small farmers, if we could just have a little bit more help on, not help, government help, but if just our input costs are so high, and I don't know how to change that. I know that the H-2A rate could probably be worked on through legislation, but it's such a bipartisan thing. I mean, you know, if you say that you don't want to pay your workers more, well, you're a slave driver. You're just, you know,
evil.
You're evil. And then on the flip side, the more liberal side seems like they're more about, let's bring more people into the country. And the H-2A is a completely separate issue from illegal immigration.
Right.
Completely separate. My guys do not want to come here and stay forever. They want to work hard and go back home to their homes, just like you and I don't want to move to Mexico or any other country. We want to be home in our familiar setting with our family. They want to make money, send it back home, go back home and enjoy that time with their family. They don't want to uproot their children or their wives and bring them over here. It's a lot cheaper to live down there, especially when you're making almost $15 an hour.
Yeah.
So it really needs to be legal immigration and H-2A. They're not even in the same ballpark, because I mean, and there are a lot of people that come here legally to work, but they're not the H-2A workers. So let's work on both, but not think we have to have legislation that's ties them together. You know, we really need people to work on these issues individually and get where, you know, we can take care of the legal immigration and things that are bad about it, but we can also keep our H-2A program going, keep people employed, keep people being able to support their families, but also keep farmers where they're not worried about if they're going to be able to do this for the next 5 or 10 years or 1 year, really. You know, because every year it goes up exponentially, you know.
Man, I know that's scary for you. Trying to make ends meet.
Absolutely. I mean, last year was the most expensive year for us in farming ever, and probably for 95% of people farming. Fertilizer, LP, diesel. I mean, and when your H-2A rate goes up, or just your rate in general, your workers' comp costs go up because that's figured, and your disability insurance, that, because we have to provide that as well.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have that in place before you'll even allowed in the program. There's so many boxes that we have to check to be able to do this. And in that, our rate that we pay for that insurance is based on a percentage of what our payroll was. Hello, my payroll's been over $1 million every year for the last 5 years. You know, 1.5 million some year. I mean, you know, you know, I feel like there's a lot of people that could solve the problems that we have, but unfortunately, there are places like here and not in D.C. where they need to be, you know. And we've got some really good legislators. I'm excited about some of the folks that just got elected and sworn in about the changes that they can make. And as I told one of our local guys that I supported in the North Carolina General Assembly, I've got your number, and I'm going to call you if you don't do the stuff that you say you're going to do.
Right, and everybody should feel that way.
So, I mean, that's just one of the things, if we could just work together on some of these costs. I mean, it is fulfilling to be a farmer. It is an enjoyable job. It's a calling. But like any job, if you cannot make more than you spend,
that's right, then
you can't, you know, sustain it. You can't pay for your house. You can't pay for, you know, your kids to do this and that, and to be in sports and to put food on your table. You know, I mean, it's not about profitability. It's not about profitability, but you have to have profitability if you want to stay in it.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, and as consumers are relying on us to get that food in the grocery store or to the roadside stands or wherever, and I mean, we can't do it year after year if we're not, you know, making a profit.
Gosh, Marlo, I got like 1,000 questions.
know.
I could sit here and talk all day.
No, Kim, I'm telling you.
I'm like, man, I would have asked this and that.
I know.
How about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I just don't want to go on and on and on, but I know that we have to wrap it up at some point. But I feel like the Kim, there's like a part 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
my daddy says I have too many words. My daddy always said I have plenty of words and plenty of volume. So y'all
we'll add, you know, the links where you can go to Kim Kornegay's Facebook page or Instagram. You know, Kornegay Family Farms. You can follow along her stories from their website. You can get recipes. So at the end of this podcast, you know, we'll supply the link to her information and the North Carolina Sweet Potato Commission. So everybody knows they can go check out to get facts, information, recipes about North Carolina sweet potatoes. And thank you, Kim.
Thank y'all. I mean, this has been so much fun.
I know, it really is so fun.
I knew it would be. I mean, when we talked about having Kim, and we called you out in the parking lot one day to see if you would come, and I knew it would be a good time. It's always a good time when Marlo's around, though. She's a hoot.
She is. She's a pig snob.
I couldn't do it without y'all. It's definitely a team effort. So, but thanks for everybody for coming out today.
We gotta have our farm fact.
Though. Oh yeah, I forgot our farm fact. Kim, give us one fact.
North Carolina farm fact.
Well, sweet potato is one word. You know, I mean, right now, or for so many years and decades, sweet has been the adjective to define the potato, which was a noun. But really, sweet potato is one word. Botanically, scientifically, it is in the record. It is in the books, and that we are trying to. The commission is on an active campaign to try to get your iPhone to not autocorrect when you, or your Droid or whatever when you're writing a paper. Or doing anything that autocorrect wants to separate them. So we're working on getting, you know, people in press and people to make the decisions about our words to realize that sweet potato is one word.
And then when you go plural, you notice, is it the ES on the end?
ES on the end. That's right. I mean, sweet potato is one word. Hashtag sweet potato is one word, and just get the word out there so we can. I mean, it seems so simple, but when you get people buzzing and talking about this and that, you know, gets them thinking about sweet potatoes. Then they go to the grocery store, they put some sweet potatoes in their cart. I mean, so we, as much, you know, buzz as we can generate about this wonderful root vegetable that has done so much for our state and for the other states in the country, you know. And speaking of, North Carolina is the top producing sweet potato state in the nation. Over 60% of the nation's supply
number one
comes from North Carolina, and we're super proud of that. So
I saw a stat where like 63.5% of all the sweet potatoes in the U.S. are grown in North Carolina. Yeah. It's not just a little bit. Like, we are number one.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we went to we had the United States Sweet Potato Council had its annual national convention, and North Carolina takes turns with other states hosting. So we hosted it in Wilmington this past January, and every state gets up and makes its report, you know, what's going on, how many acres. And so this state got up and said, well, we've got about 5,000 acres. This state got up, we've got about 3,000 acres. Then North Carolina got up. Well, we had about 104,000 acres this year.
Boom!
So,
and for anybody that doesn't know the acreage size, it's about the size of a football field, right? I mean, if you would like for a consumer to understand, an acre is about the size of a football field. So.
I mean, we got a lot of football fields.
Yeah, I
mean, we've just got the soil, the climate. I mean, we've got so many great things going for sweet potatoes to be sweet potato producers in North Carolina, and being so close to the ports. Yeah, you know, Wilmington, Charleston, Norfolk, and being able to export that. Yeah. I mean, God's hand has really been on North Carolina and the North Carolina sweet potato industry.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's, you know, here on Bacon Buddies talking about sweet potatoes. I was thinking about bacon and sweet potatoes. I don't know if they go together.
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
Kim's got a recipe.
Ham, sausage. I mean, any pork and sweet potatoes. I mean, it's a winning combination.
You can wrap a sweet potato and bacon. I'm fine with it.
Let's do it.
I support it. I might.
Yeah.
Hey, cut you up some thick bacon and put that when you're roasting those sweet potatoes later on. Mix it all together. Make some hash.
I knew bacon would find a way.
It finds a way. A little bit of maple syrup around there.
Yeah.
I mean, bacon is the common denominator to everything.
Yeah.
It brings vegans back to animal protein.
Yep, it does. It's the gateway drug.
Oh man, Bacon Buddies podcast. Man, we're having a lot of fun here. We've gone live.
I don't want to go to work now. I'm having so much fun with y'all.
Yeah, so we've got some episodes up. You can find them on your favorite streaming service. I know Spotify, Audible. I think kind of waiting on to get through on Apple Podcasts, and you can also go to YouTube.
All
and
right.
watch, so.
Yeah, well, I got all of those. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you
Y'all-
so
y'all
much,
in.
Kim.
Thank y'all.
Yeah.
I appreciate it a lot.
Awesome. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.